a quick question about fentanyl and what you might be able to do about that.
I mean, my history is, I was a drug addict myself for 14 years from beginning right after my dad died when I was 15 years old. And, and so I've been thinking about sobriety for 40 years. And I see what's happening in this country now, this dramatic expansion of opioid deaths. We now, I think last year had 106,000 opioid deaths. That's almost twice of the number of kids that were killed in the Vietnam War in 20-year Vietnam War, but we're killing that many every year. And all of us, I don't think there's a family in this country whose lives have not been touched. My family certainly has. I lost a couple of my brothers. I've lost a niece during the pandemic to opioid overdoses. And and if you go to rural communities like the ones that I spend a lot of time in this country, it's a plague beyond anything that I think any American can ever imagine. And a lot of it, it's interesting because I know you're an expert on addiction, and a lot of people will argue that, 10% of any population is going to be addicts, that there's a genetic component to addiction, and that, what drug you get addicted to is kind of, is cultural. But you're just going to have this group of people that it's always going to be addicts. But I think it's pretty clear also that addiction is, drug addiction for me was kind of a shortcut to spirituality in a weird way, because it comes from a disconnectedness and a hunger and empty space inside of you that you need to fill with God somehow, or some kind of spiritual connection. And instead you reach outside of yourself for some substance or some action that will fix that emptiness inside of you. And I believe that emptiness we feel inside of ourselves is compounded across the population in, with the alienation people are feeling, the nihilism, the hopelessness. If you talk to young people in this country, in my era, they were the most idealistic people. Today, I find such a high degree of hopelessness and nihilism in young people that we have to start reaching. One of the things I'm going to do, Drew, which is going to be my Peace Corps program, in analogy for my uncle's Peace Corps program, is I'm going to launch a series of healing centers all across our country. As you know, the recovery industry in this country is a very large industry. It may be as big as $42 billion a year. But it's very predatory in many senses. And we need to be able to and it's very expensive to get treatment. And I've gone, when I first got sober, I would take people up to a place called High Watch Farms in Connecticut, which was started by the founders of AA and Bill Wilson and his friends. And then it was handed over to another group because AA was not allowed by its own charter to own anything. But this place I could bring people to. There was no physician on staff, but it was basically barracks that were very pleasant. But they went to meetings and people got treatment, and you could do it for $75 a week. And I brought probably over 100 people up there, and they got sober. And it was about reestablishing people's relationship with community and reparenting people, who were completely lost in areas of their life, and to reestablish their connection with community and some kind of spirituality, not in a religious nature, but to fill that empty hole with connectiveness. Addiction is a disease of isolation, and the recovery is about reestablishing connections to other people and with community by cleaning up the defects of character that stand between you and other people.
Yep.
And so I'm, one of my major initiatives is to go to rural areas in this country and build these facilities, partner with 501c3s, with charitable organizations, and, build facilities that kids can go to with mental illness. And by the way, the addiction is not just to heroin and fentanyl. There's 120
Mhm.
million addicts. There's as many people addicted to SRIs and
Right.
benzos,
Screens.
which is what.
Right. Well, he's
Screens.
saying screens.
Addicted to
I will tell you
screens.
that, yeah, the social media, I think, is the root of all evil because it is driving, I tell you, the disenfranchisement.
There's a place that I've visited many times that is kind of a model for the way I'm thinking about this.
Yeah.
In Italy, it's called San Patrignano, and the only requirement for going there is that you commit to 5 years. It's absolutely free, and they do organic farming, and they teach skills. They have bakeries and furniture factories, and they are basically self-sufficient. And one thing is they do not allow screens. Nobody has a
Yeah.
cell phone,
Yeah.
and they're forced to actually talk with other human beings, and they reparented and learn that skill again about how to connect to
Yep.
communities. And I really want to. It's so successful over there. There's 2,000 kids who live there. They can stay as long as they want. They stay a minimum of 5 years, and they come out completely changed. And we
Oh,
need
I'm
to be able
sure.
to offer to people in this country who are lost right now.
I I can support virtually every word that came out of your mouth about addiction and
Yeah.
some of these models for treatment. It's absolutely accurate.